right, welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. I promise I'm not 5'3". All right, guess that's just where it's going to stay. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you so much for hanging out today. As always, this show presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for some awesome Calgary swag. Not rocking the Cannons hat today, but I normally do. But we also got the sweater in the background, some awesome Stampede wrestling gear. Check it all out, seaofdead403.ca. Also, this show, as always, fueled by Swift Energy. Check out swiftenergy.gg. Use the code, PK Primetime for 25% off. Honestly, had a bit too much Swift Energy, and that is why we're starting this thing around 30 minutes later than I wanted to. So apologies for that for folks on the live stream. Of course, if you want to get these early, you can do so at twitch.tv/primetimepk. All right. Way too much chilling for a thing that's getting a little bit off the rails here already. But a lot to get into on this show. NFL, what a weekend. NHL, what a start to the weekend with a huge trade. Calgary Flames making moves. And then we get into the combat sports portion. So again, for podcast listeners, everything's going to be divided up into a couple here today. On the combat sports portion of the show, we got Naoya Inoue. Made a big deal about him last week. Did not disappoint. We'll talk about that fight. We have another big boxing fight coming up this weekend with Benavidez against Morrell. The UFC is back in Saudi Arabia with a former pound-for-pound king getting an opportunity to try to get back in the win column in a monster fight for him. And then the WWE had a big weekend last weekend with Saturday night's main event. It's bigger this weekend as it is the Royal Rumble, baby. The best event in WWE all year. I cannot wait for the Rumble this weekend. So we have a lot to get to. We are already late in getting to it, so we got to get this thing rolling. Shout out to Toxic, first in the chat as always. Always appreciate that, my man. Let's dive into some football talk, shall we? Thought I could do that quicker than I did, but I guess not. The NFL is now down to 2. The Super Bowl is set, and it is a matchup so nice we're getting it twice in 3 years, as the Philadelphia Eagles will take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Spoiler alert. Let's break them down, and we will go in reverse chronological order, because how can we not talk about that game that we saw on Sunday night with the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And the first thing you have to talk about when you are talking about this game is Mahomes' magic. He was phenomenal. And now, for those who are watching or listening or whatever, who don't know, this is this is my podcast. We did preview stuff, and I did make a pick with the Buffalo Bills, but also I'm on Sportsnet 960 The Fan, and we do NFL picks on there as well. It's a radio station in Calgary, for those not listening or watching in the Calgary area. We do our NFL picks on there, and the repercussions for that are if I do not, if whoever comes in last place in that, between myself, Logan Gordon, and Shan Vergy, whoever comes in last place has to eat the like spiciest chip in the world and do a recap of the Super Bowl. So we have a lot on the line there, and I actually picked Buffalo in that as well. And so, real long way of coming around to say this, going against Mahomes sucks. It is not enjoyable. I don't think I will ever bet against him. Now, I'm not going to bet on him every week, but it's incredible what this guy is able to do. And just, it is soul crushing when you're rooting against him and you're betting against him and you're picking against him to see some of the plays that he is making. And this is the first part that I just got wrong. Just flat out got this one wrong. Is I thought Buffalo, given how well they contained Lamar Jackson in the AFC divisional round, I thought that they would have Matt Milano be able to get contain on Patrick Mahomes. And instead, they completely lost it. They lost contain on him entirely, and he was able to just kill them with his legs. Obviously, like, he is... I have said before, and I am not changing my stance on this now, he is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm 35 years old, been watching this sport for most of those years. That there is just simply no one who is like him. The throws that he is able to make, the creativity that he has, everything about him is just exceptional, what he is able to do. But the plays with the legs are just killers, because you think you got everything defended downfield, and then he's just going to roll out, and he's either going to do some weird little boop pass over the top and just kill you, or he's going to be able to run for a first down. And I just feel like you almost have to, I mean, it's pick your poison. right? Because if you are spying him, that takes one guy out of coverage, and you don't need to give that guy more room to fit some of these exceptional passes in or anything like that. So that becomes, again, a very, I don't want to say dangerous, but it's just how do you defend it? Because if you don't, and you just have everyone back in coverage, well, now he has time, he can beat you with his legs, his field vision is otherworldly, almost computer-esque, and he goes out and gets the job done. Like, it is, watching him play, it is almost like you could just take the game film, the coach's film that they put up. You could take that, screenshot almost every play, and run it through ChatGPT or whatever your AI of choice is, and ask it, hey, what's the perfect play to make here? And he's going to make it. Almost every time. It is just any opening that you give him, he will take it. And so, yeah, if you want to spy him, he's going to then probably find an opening on someone else. You just, in this case, it really did beat the Buffalo Bills that I don't think they were able to contain Patrick Mahomes enough. The other part of it is the brilliance of the play calling. They are so good at getting guys wide open in big moments in ways I have never seen before. And now this is the part where it might be getting a little hyperbolic, because that is the one where, like, I don't have a Rolodex of, like, oh, well, actually, in the AFC title game in 2003, there was actually a really good play where they were able to scheme it up, and, hey, Kevin Falk is wide open for a big play. But it's brilliance. It is play call, play design, brilliance. On that play, they have everyone going over to the right. You have I think it was two receivers lined up wide on the left, and they're cutting across the field to the right. And so you have P. Ryan, who, no one's paying attention to, hasn't touched the football all game. And he comes up and makes a bit of a dart to the left. And you have a linebacker who has to go against the flow of every little bit of current that is going there. And it just really gets him caught up in the wash. It leaves an opening. Now, P. Ryan has to make a play, get around a linebacker for a first down, but Mahomes puts it in a perfect spot for him to catch it and make his move, get around that edge, and get to the first down. It is brilliance. You were watching that play. It's 3rd and 8 with the season on the line, and you just knew someone was going to be wide open. You didn't know who it was going to be, but you knew someone was going to be wide open for them to get it to. It is brilliance in play calling and in play design. It is something else I have harped on too with Patrick Mahomes in this era with him, because they trade away Tyreek Hill, and then the year after it starts out as a disaster, right? And I might be mixing up my timelines on this, but I don't think I am. It starts out with, like, Kadarius Toney. Okay, well, you know what? We don't have Tyreek Hill, but we've got Patrick Mahomes, and we just need speed. We just speed. Quick. Let's go. And he gets the ball to Kadarius Toney, who bobbles it, and it gets intercepted. And then later on, he fumbles. And all throughout these years, like this little run, post Tyreek Hill with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, they have tried random wide receiver X. All right, let's draft a speed wide receiver here. Let's draft this guy. That guy was really good 3 years ago. Let's sign him to a free agent contract for cheap money and see if we can make it work, because we have the most talented human being to ever play the quarterback position. And so, I mean, if you're Mahomes, that has to be a little like, look how good I am. Which, I mean, how could you not? He's amazing. And he doesn't seem to really have that level to him, but who could blame him if he did? Anyway, losing the plot here a little bit. The point is, they have tried to surround him with just this island of misfit toys and just a hope and a prayer on a few different things. And there were a number of occasions where it came back to bite them. Whether it was Toney tipping the ball in the air and it's fumbled. It's a guy is open and the pass just doesn't quite connect with him. And Mahomes thinks he's supposed to go left and he goes right, and it's an interception. And then last year, they are the most vulnerable that they have ever felt, because they have to go play playoff games on the road for the first time because guys were not making plays in the way that Patrick Mahomes would assume that they would. And at no point did Patrick Mahomes throw them under the bus. Every time when it was obvious and honestly comically obvious that Mahomes was just covering up for his guy and not wanting to throw him under the bus. So, yeah, you know what? That was my fault. No human being in the eyesight having world would have blamed Patrick Mahomes for some of the plays that he took accountability for. And you're looking at it, it's like, man, like you don't have to do this. While you're doing this, everyone can see what's happening. But it is so that you don't throw your guys under the bus publicly, so that you can go back to him like, hey, next time we come to you, you need to make that play. So that when the biggest plays happen, they are ready. So that when the game is on the line against your arch rival and they need just to make a stop on third down, and one of the most talented players in the league is going to get the ball back, you can dump it to a guy who hasn't touched the ball all game and has barely touched the ball all season, is going to be ready to make a play. If you want to know what true leadership really is, you look at Patrick Mahomes. You look at how he handled the people around him not making the plays that he thinks they should make, and how he is able to not throw them under the bus, continue to hold them accountable, and continue to win based off of, yes, his own greatness, but also that building up of others around him. That can be taken into every little thing in life. You don't like the people, like for managers and whatever. You don't like the people who are under you, instead of just like, you know what? I want to get this guy fired, or I want to make him quit, and I want to bring in my own people and bring in my own team, because some people in management like to use sports stuff a little bit too much, but bring in my own team, and I'll be able to guide them that way. This is it. You think if we did a fantasy draft right now, Patrick Mahomes is drafting those receivers? I'm sure he likes them. I'm sure he enjoys their company. And I'm sure he'd even pick a couple of them. But if you gave Patrick Mahomes some truth serum, said, hey, you got your pick of the litter, those aren't exactly the top 3 guys that he is picking. But he is understanding of his own greatness. He is understanding of the situation. And he is also understanding of how human beings work. And he is seeing, I need to be successful, and I cannot do it alone. And these are the people that I have to be successful with. So instead of whining and complaining and just saying, didn't have my own people, didn't have my guys, needed better stuff in there. Instead, it's how can I make them better? How can I maximize their talents so that in the biggest situations of their lives, we can get to where we need to get to and accomplish all of our goals. It is a masterclass in leadership all the way through what these guys are able to do. So just a bit of a tirade there, and maybe a little bit of touch from my own experiences in life as well. But other parts of this game that were brilliant from Kansas City, all of it. Like this was an exceptional football game. All of it, the whole way. This was such a fun game to watch. But Steve Spagnuolo does not get nearly enough credit for his role in Kansas City. And honestly, that has been to the benefit of the Chiefs. The fact that you have this guy who has turned into a bit of a defensive coordinator wizard, and no one is interviewing him for coaching positions. So you're not in the spot of Detroit where, yeah, we got a good team, but everyone has to learn a new system now this year because both of our coordinators are gone. You can keep that continuity, you can keep that consistency and keep building it up. And so now, Spags knows. He knows what his own tendencies are, and he understands how people are going to be game planning to them, and so now I can go out and adjust with X, Y, and Z. And he's doing it exceptionally well. He also has such a great sense of the moment and great sense of what works and what doesn't. And Romo was talking about it. He in like third and short, fourth and short, late in games, he loves to blitz you. It's like, you know what? This is, again, one of the biggest moments of your life. Maybe the decision-making processes aren't firing at 110% up here. So I'm going to put more pressure on you and make you have to make the right decision immediately. And so you know that, and he's doing that, and it's working. And then it's fourth down with the season on the line again, and they're not showing blitz. And Buffalo isn't ready for them to not be showing. Buffalo's like, this guy blitzes every time in these situations. Why isn't he showing blitz? Okay, well, he's not showing blitz. We're going to have time. Let's make this read and let's go. And then the corner blitz comes in a move no one on planet Earth is expecting, and they're not ready for it. So the guy who always blitzes in those situations finds a way to blitz in that situation and still make it be unpredictable. It's just, it's again, I'm saying it a lot. It's a masterclass. And I know there's a lot of smoke blowing, and that's not exactly what people want on discussions about the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Tough. This is how I view it. This is just exactly what these guys did in a phenomenal way. It is such a fantastic way of adjusting for the Kansas City Chiefs. On the Buffalo Bills side, this has to be so tough. You are so close again. And it is again, it's not even that you're going out there and, all right, Travis Kelce, he got us, man. Pat, like these guys, they got us. It's Samaje Perine. It's Juju Smith-Schuster making these plays that are putting you away. It's like, how can we not stop that? How can we not stop that? Now, you do get a Curtis Samuel touchdown at one point, so you can kind of balance that off a little bit. But how are we not stopping that? That has to be so infuriating from the Buffalo Bills standpoint. The one thing about it is looking at how this game was played and how you beat the Kansas City Chiefs. This is, again, not how you do it. And it's tough because you have to play perfect. And Buffalo did for a lot of this game, but didn't at points when it mattered. How do you beat the Kansas City Chiefs? We've said it before, it's not with field goals. What do the Buffalo Bills get to start this game? Field goals. Not what you're supposed to be doing against these guys when they can go out and put up touchdowns. And they went for 2 on a couple of occasions. That's great. Need to execute in those situations. And they just didn't quite do it the way that they needed to. And you need a big stop. You need a tackle. For sure, try to tackle Samaje Perine before he gets there. It is just those little plays where the Kansas City Chiefs make them always. And the Buffalo Bills make them most of the time. And that is enough. That Bills side is enough to beat 31 other teams in the National Football League. It is just those guys over there that you can't beat when you are only executing at 95% instead of 100%. And that has to be exhausting because it's how it is. And I feel like they kind of choked in this game a little bit. Not Josh Allen. I think he was great. Toxic is asking in the chat, does this game affect Josh Allen's legacy? I think that is a very interesting question, and I will answer it in a second. But I think when you look at where this thing went wrong, how did they lose this game? There are some execution things that just didn't work. But early on, it didn't look great for Buffalo. You had some execution things like at the beginning of the game, it looked like old Josh Allen, right? Like he almost got intercepted on 2 of the first 3 passes of the game. And it was a little scatterbrained. And I think they were looking to get that big shot early to try to take the crowd out of it. When I think in that situation, everyone's amped up. Everyone knows the stakes. You've been asked 100 times, hey, you guys have beat everyone except for those guys. That probably sucks, hey? Yes, they've been asked about this a million times. And so they have to try to go out and contain that a little bit. And so instead of taking big shots, I thought they needed to let's just get a couple drive starters. Let's get this thing going, and then we can take our shot downfield. Let's have it be a 4-play drive. We don't need to be the Eagles. We don't need to be, okay, you guys have an 18-play drive, well, we're going to have 1. You can just have a little bit of a dink and dunk and work your way through it there. But it's the perfection that you needed. And then late in the game, so full disclosure, I was out visiting friends during the day. And so I joined this one late. And I joined basically as Buffalo was scoring the touchdown to take the lead at the beginning of the second half. And then you watch in the fourth quarter and the offense is tight. And there's no flow to it. There's no rhythm to it. It is downside hut, quick pass over to the left. Okay, well, that was a wide receiver screen. We didn't get a whole lot, but we moved the ball a little bit. Okay, quick set hut. Okay, quick pass, and we just got it there. They were play calling scared. They were play calling in a way that they just didn't want to screw it up in any way. And now part of that is the defense. I've talked about it, honestly. Again, I mentioned Shan before. This is a couple times. I've been way too nice to Shan today, but you have a couple of times where we'll do basketball broadcasts together, and he said a good press makes it so that even when they're not pressing you, you still feel that. And you still, they have amped up the adrenaline to 1,000,000,000, and you're just like, okay, something's coming, and everything is just a little bit quicker. And that, again, is what Spagnuolo does. He understands the pressure of the moment, and he understands basically human psychology and how to fuck with you. And so Buffalo felt that pressure coming, even when that pressure wasn't there. And so because of that, they are making good, quick passes and getting a couple of yards, but the strength really of that defense all game was how good the front four was playing, and then the really strong tackling of guys like Reed and McDuffie and stuff like that. You're playing right into those. You're not breaking tackles against these guys. That's just not how you're going to beat them. And they couldn't. And so Kansas City, again, their pressure forced Buffalo to feel like that pressure was going to come instantly, and so we just have to get it away and get things going. And because of that, the offense just looked so rigid. And so I was curious. I was like, is that how this game was really played? So you go back and watch it this morning, and No, there was a flow to their offense. There was a rhythm to it. And it didn't really connect until late in that first half. And then again in the third quarter, where they're able to march down and get the touchdowns. And it's big plays over the top to Hollins. And they're able to get those things rolling. But this was just not at all how they were going to be successful in this game. And I think that they just got spooked. Once again, I think they got spooked. And so I think there can be bigger decisions and bigger discussions about the shelf life of Joe Brady, Sean McDermott, and this team. And it's tough because they get you to the conference championship game and you lose to a dynasty. And you're saying, well, I just don't think these guys can get over the hump. Like, who can against these guys? Very few have. It took Tom Brady and 8 injured offensive linemen for these guys to get got at any point in a Super Bowl game, right? So it's very difficult to get these guys. But Buffalo, I think, just showed how not to do that. And again, it's those little executions late. They have the ball in the red zone, going for a score, and you throw a fade to the end zone. And I'm pretty sure it was to Keon Coleman, who I think is actually pretty good. I don't think he's the number one, but I think he's actually pretty good. The problem is Trent McDuffie is covering him. And Trent McDuffie eats that guy's lunch on that play, and there's just nothing. And so it's like, what were you seeing there? What was the read there? Why was that it? And it's just those little plays as it goes on that they build up and they cost you. The one thing that is very frustrating about these games is that we are so on guard about the officiating in a Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs game that anything that goes Kansas City's way, and it is conspiracy time. It is the referees have screwed it. The referees have ruined another great Super Bowl or another great playoff game and potentially another great Super Bowl. That probably will in a couple of weeks. And it just be every primetime Mahomes game turns into a referendum on NFL officiating, and it's getting old. To be perfectly frank, it sucks. And I don't think it was warranted in this one. The Worthy play, was that a catch? I didn't think so. There was still a penalty on the play. They were still going to have a first down, and they're still probably going to get something on it. The other one was the 4th and 1. Honestly, and I know, like, they talked about it on the broadcast, and I think he might have got it. I didn't see it. I kind of thought, like, I literally watched it. I didn't think he got that first down. I thought that they had stopped him just short. Now, we can have a larger discussion about a tens of billions of dollar league where legacies and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, are on the line. And in the most tense moments of the game, the most precise decisions have to be made by a 60-year-old dude standing 54 yards away, having to try to see through a sea of about 10 other guys. That seems probably like not something we should be doing in 2025, right? Like we have microchips. We can figure this shit out, right? Like this we can have a discussion about how that is one of the dumbest things that happens in sports, right? Like they should have, I feel like personally, the NFL should be able to match the technological components of tennis and just be able to have a chip and just, hey, was that a first down? Oh, look at that. The football kind of just squeaked a yay, first down. All right, let's keep moving. I don't know why we have to eyeball these things and measure it all and look at 5 different camera angles. And I know, like, the CFL tried to do the chip in the football thing, and then they kicked the footballs and they went all over the place. It has to be a perfect science because, I mean, you're messing with the football, but there has to be a better way to be able to do this. And that is the conversation I will have today. But did the referees cost the Buffalo Bills this game? No. No, did the referees let Patrick Mahomes run for 45 yards? No. There was no roughing the passers. That were bad calls on that. Honestly, a lot of, like, drive extending penalties, it felt like they were going Buffalo's way. Like, I actually think they got the better part of the whistle in this game. So I don't view this at all as a game that we need to do the referendum on the officiating. Now to Toxic's question. Is this a game that affects the legacy of Josh Allen? And I kind of think it has to. And it's weird because I also don't think that it's Josh Allen's fault. I don't think that this is a game that you put on Josh Allen and say, oh yeah, guy just didn't make plays, because he was everywhere and he was doing everything and he's making those runs and he's doing all of those different things. But this is now 4 times in the playoffs that these guys have got you. And again, they're getting everybody. But even in the Brady era, Manning got his, right? Roethlisberger got his. Flacco got his. Tim Tebow got a little bit of his. You know, like, guys at least still got theirs. And sometimes that requires someone else to beat the dude. But the Bengals have done it, right? Like, even in this Mahomes time, it's been them in the Super Bowl a lot, but the Bengals have got them at one point. The Patriots did at the beginning of it. Now, D Ford ended up being offside, and if not for that, then who knows what kind of legacy thing we're talking about here. But still, they at least can be got. They're not going 16-0 every year and getting their way to the championship game. At some point, you have to be the ones who are doing it. And again, I need to stress that it is not Josh Allen's fault that they are not winning these games. But you don't want your legacy to be the guy who was really good, but it wasn't your fault that you lost. Because that last word at the end of it is still going to be the one that sticks with you for forever. And so if Josh Allen, like the second Josh Allen wins a Super Bowl, most of these conversations go away, right? It did for Peyton Manning for a little bit, and then it weirdly came back where it was, well, Peyton Manning can win the big one, or can't win the big one. Peyton Manning can't win the big one. And then they do, and that kept people at bay for a while, and then it was, oh, I can't do it again, which it was the weirdest discourse ever. And then he did, and he had nothing to do with it, and it's still just like, oh yeah, one of the greatest of all time. It's like, how did we, whatever. Again, conversation for a different day. But with Josh Allen, if he wins a Super Bowl, a lot of these conversations go away. But the longer that they are happening, the more difficult it is to silence them, and the more difficult it is to put him properly, I think, into a tier or into a part of the pantheon that is appropriate to the talent that he has. And that is where a lot of this is going, is that this is a really, really talented quarterback who just hasn't been able to get there. But again, that trophy solves a lot, right? Like, John Elway didn't win a Super Bowl until his second last season in the league. And then he won it again. And now all of a sudden, and no one talks about, oh, well, he was a choke artist and he couldn't do this and he couldn't do that and he couldn't do whatever. No one talks about that kind of stuff anymore. It's just two-time Super Bowl champion, John Elway. But in leading up to it, it's, oh, can John win the big one? Can they do it? Can he win the big one? And then he gets helicoptered at the goal line and we all lose our minds about it. But that's the difference, because we still talk about John Elway. And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the conversations involving Dan Marino are getting less and less and less, and that memory is fading farther and farther away. And it shouldn't just have to do with the trophies that you get to hold up at the end of it, but it really does. And so Josh Allen has all the talent in the world to be a quarterback that we talk about for the rest of our lives and beyond. But he does not have the resume to back it up. And so this game, I don't think this is the one where it's like, okay, Josh can't win the big one. But I do think that this is another example of these guys can't beat those guys. And that conversation is getting louder and louder and louder. Because the Kansas City dynasty, it's incredible. And I can understand Chiefs fatigue and all of that. We love to hate the dynasties and everything. And I think part of it too is this is one of the least pretty dynasties that we have had. You know, like, you think back of the sports dynasties, or even in contention with dynasty right now that we've had in the last little while. The Golden State Warriors. Well, it's the Splash Brothers shooting the lights out. Look how much fun it is. The three-pointers all over the place. Steph Curry can do things that no one's ever done with a basketball before. And it's a blast. And then they get Kevin Durant, and we kind of hate them for a little bit, but it's still really aesthetically pleasing because all the shots are going in. And boy, isn't that fun. You look in hockey, we haven't had a dynasty for a really long time. But the closest was the Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, they have one of the best goalies in the world, but they are just, it's hammering one-timers, and it's putting up points, and it's fast-paced, and it's all these different things, and it's fun to watch. In baseball, again, haven't had a dynasty for a while, hated the late 90s Yankees, but it was fun. Right? Like, Derek Jeter's coming up with big hits, and it's Paul O'Neill home run, and then Mariano Rivera is coming in, and this cut fastball no one can figure out, and it's dominance. And now in this, it kind of sucks sometimes. Like, it's okay, well, they didn't do anything for a while, and now all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes has made 4 plays and the game's over. It's just, it is not as fun of a ride to go on with these guys as it normally is. And so that has been a very difficult thing to kind of work their way through. So I understand the fatigue. At this point in my life, as someone who started out a LeBron hater, couldn't stand those Yankees teams, and you will never get me to. And even like the Tiger Woods stuff, it's like, oh, Tiger Woods, we get it. He's winning again, blah, 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 blah. By the end of Most of those, with the exception of the Yankees, I was able to jump on and be like, you know what? This is just dope. This LeBron James, this is incredible, and if I have grandchildren, I'm going to be telling them about it. And Tiger Woods, same thing. Going to be telling them about a couple other things too, if you know what I'm saying. But going to tell them about it. This is greatness that we are watching, and that is why I was gushing at the start of this, because everything they do, it is just that there is no detail that is missed. There is nothing that is overlooked. It is okay. Well, how should we handle this exact situation? And they do it perfectly almost every time. And so I, for one, am choosing to just enjoy the ride that the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty is taking us on, because for the third time in a row, it is taking us to the Super Bowl. What about the other game? It certainly was the other game on the schedule this week, as it was the Washington Commanders against the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's break that one down as well. For those watching live, we are an hour into this thing. We've talked about one football game, so might want to gonna try to pick up the pace a little bit here as we get into this one. For this game, there isn't as much to talk about. The Eagles were just too much in this game, and what a contrast that Washington goes 18 plays, and they have to do trick plays and fourth downs and all these different things to march their way down and get a field goal, and the Eagles just got to toss it once to Saquon Barkley, and it's a touchdown. That basically was this game, is that Washington had to work really hard for everything they got. And every time they got something, it was like, all right, they got it. Here we go. And every time the Eagles got something, it was like, well, yeah, they got it. Of course they did. It was just, everything came easier to the Eagles in this game than it did the Commanders. And honestly, that was a bit of a thing in the first game we talked about, Buffalo against Kansas City. It just felt like everything Buffalo was getting, they had to work really, really hard for. And everything Kansas City was getting, it was just kind of flowing to them. That's what this game looked like. And Hurts, any conversations about his legs being banged up, probably pretty quiet. Again, I wasn't watching this live, so I wasn't following the discourse on social media, but my guy balled out in that game. And it was, again, I picked them to win. I have had some concerns about this team in the build-up to this game. They're quiet right now. That was exactly what they were supposed to look like. That was the exact performance they're supposed to put on. Just a thing of art from the Philadelphia Eagles, putting on the performance of a team that is deserving of going to the Super Bowl. It was a complete effort, because the defense played really well as well. That pass rush is fantastic. The pressure that they were able to get on Jaden Daniels, and then you're trusting your secondary in one-on-one situations so often. Part of that is the receivers that Washington has, but the next team that you're facing doesn't exactly have Jerry Rice and Terrell Owens out there either, right? So this was such a perfect, well-rounded performance from the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's something we've been saying all season long, is that this team, on paper, they are able to put out the most well-rounded team in the sport. And they do it so well. And when it's clicking, it is unstoppable, because you can do RPO with Hurts. So you have to kind of play back a little bit. Well, if you play back a little bit, Saquon Barkley had the 8th best rushing season in the history of the National Football League, and he is a one of one, and he'll make you pay, and he did. But if you overcommit to that, then Hurts can take you to the outside, and he'll kill you. And then, if you really overcommit to it, then you're leaving A.J. Brown one-on-one, and that'll kill you. Okay, well, we have to play back in zone. All right, well, Dallas Goedert has been playing this game for a long time, knows how to find the holes. That'll kill you. And then if we really, okay, well, let's kind of shift over to that. Well, now Devonta Smith, and it is one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. And they can kind of run this thing like it's a computer, like the most basic of computer programs. Well, where it's like, if yes, then this. If no, then this. And it's just like on to the next thing. And it is just, it can be so efficient. And then on the defensive side, they can get great pressure with just 4. Honestly, with just 1, although Jalen Carter was a little bit more quiet in this game, but they can get pressure with 4. And then they have really good linebackers in the second level that swarm to the ball and are able to punch them out, or are able to back off into coverage and really cause some problems. And then if you can get beyond that, there's 2 fantastic corners on this team, and then a real hard-hitting safety at the back end of that. Like, it is such a masterfully constructed football team, and it's a joy to watch when it is working. And that's why I get so frustrated with this team sometimes, because it did look a little bit clunky for a lot of this season. And you're wondering, like, why isn't this working? And then you see it work, and you can see what it can do. It can put up 55 points while only giving up 23. Like, they can clear the point total for the game on their own when this offense is really working. And boy, have they picked a good time to get this thing really working. So it's going to be a very interesting comparison to see what is coming up here in the next little bit for the Philadelphia Eagles is they have 2 weeks to prepare for the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, a ton of Super Bowl coverage coming up here over the next couple of weeks as we lead up to, as some places have to call it, the big game in a couple of weeks' time down there in New Orleans. But I do want to mention the team that comes up a little bit short in this game, the Washington Commanders. They have nothing to be ashamed about. And honestly, if you are looking at this, the future is so bright for this team. Jaden Daniels is legit. And again, this loss, not on him. The Commanders didn't lose this game. Philadelphia won this game. And they came out and made some very big plays. Zach Ertz had a real nice kind of, hey, just a reminder, I'm still a dude game in this. And Daniel still made some really strong plays and was able to maximize a few different things in this game. And like Terry McLaurin took a step forward this year. Tammy Brown took a step forward this year and got this offense going. There are obvious holes on this team, and I think that they showed that is the case, but they're obviously on the right path right now out in Washington. And so a phenomenal season comes to a close out there. The one thing you have to caution is, we were saying, all these things almost, I would say, 358 days ago with the Houston Texans. Yeah, you know what? Didn't get Kansas City, but man, the future's bright. And then this year, it was a bit of a step back. Now they get to the divisional round still, but this year was a step back for Houston. You have to understand that teams are going to be a little bit more aware of what Jaden Daniels can do and what he can't do. Now, that list is very small, but they're going to try to exploit it for all it is worth. And so now there needs to be improvements on the Washington side of things. They need to get more talented people on defense. Although Luvu had a hell of a football game, and he played great. But there's just, Lattimore at this point cannot be the guy locking up on number ones, right? Like he's not that guy. And they don't have that guy. And it was very obvious they didn't have that guy in this game. And the offensive line needs some work. Jaden Daniels is very good at escaping. He shouldn't have to prove that 25 times a game. So they need to get that figured out. Again, we'll do the offseason preview and game plan here for Washington in a little bit, coming up tomorrow. But for now, I just want to say this team is definitely going in the right direction. And I don't think I've been able to say that about Washington in my entire football watching life. And I have to give Dan Quinn his props. I was skeptical of the hire. I thought bringing in a defensive-minded coach for a team that didn't have any defenders, that just drafted a number 2 overall pick, the quarterback of the future, with some question marks around him at the time because of health and reckless play and all of those things. You're bringing in a defensive-minded coach. Oh, and we're Kingsbury. Hey, Kyle Kingsbury. Yeah, that worked well. That went well. The last night, like, things went perfectly in Arizona. No problem. 10 out of 10. No notes. That's what you're bringing in. But Kingsbury, I think, has had a fantastic redemption arc here. And he is probably in his last year as an offensive coordinator before he gets hired as a coach to get fired in 2 years. But Dan Quinn, the aggressive style that he had in just recognizing, like, yeah, man, we are at a significant talent deficiency, kind of against everybody. So let's just, but we got one guy. So let's have that one guy be our strength and try to just win these moments in games that decide them. And most of the year it worked. And then this one, they didn't have the horses to match up with them. But I have to, apology, I think might be a bit of a stretch. I don't think Dan Quinn was up late at night because I was on here shit-talking him. But he moved up a number of different notches in my book this year. Just a phenomenal coaching performance from Dan Quinn all season long. We have had a couple other coaching hires in the NFL. I'm going to react to them tomorrow. We're going to look at Pete Carroll coming to my Raiders. Brian Schottenheimer is the new coach with the Dallas Cowboys, as we all expected. So going to be reacting to those tomorrow. I just thought today these games kind of deserved their own platform. But the weekend did not start in the sports talk world with just football, because the National Hockey League went nuts on Friday night with a blockbuster trade. So we got to talk about it now. A blockbuster trade shaking the foundation of the NHL. That second part might be hyperbole, but the first isn't. This was a real, legitimate blockbuster trade that sends ripples across the NHL. So the deal is the Colorado Avalanche send Mikko Rantanen, he of the awesome player status, but also pending UFA. He is on his way from the Colorado Avalanche to the Carolina Hurricanes in a 3-team deal that sees Carolina also get Taylor Hall in exchange for Martin Necas going back to Colorado, Jack Drury going to Colorado, and they send a 3rd-round pick to Chicago for Taylor Hall and half of Mikko Rantanen's salary. So you can already tell by how I've set this up how I feel about how each team did. Let's work our way through here. Colorado is the first one. This is obviously a gigantic shift and it's a bold move. And if you are not going to re-sign him, most teams, I would suggest almost all of them, in the situation Colorado is in, where it is Stanley Cup or bust basically every year, because you have one of the top 3 players in the league on your team. And so you just do not give up guys who are top 15 in the NHL talent. You just don't. And so for them to do that and make that move while they're battling for a playoff spot is insanity. You don't see it. And I think they do come out of this okay. You come out of this one looking all right. There's still that there is work to do. And I've said before that the biggest takeaway for this for Colorado is this has to be part 1. This cannot be the finished picture. They go out and they get Necas, who he is a fun player. I think that there is a ton of talent in him, and if he can just get that finish down a little bit more, then there is a really good player in there, bordering probably on special. It is just that the finishing ability hasn't been there in the way that I would want it to be. I'm sure someone can point to goal numbers and be like, oh, well, he's actually done this, so his finishing ability isn't even that bad. But when you look at it, he 28 goals a couple of years ago. He adds 4 more in the postseason that year, so he has flirted with 30 a couple of times, but I would suggest that he has the talent everywhere else to be like a 30 to 40 goal scorer. It is just that the finish that just hasn't quite been there just yet for him. So that there is a world where this kid's awesome, and this ends up being a home run for the Avalanche because they're able to get him under lock and key, and they're able to bring him in there. And so like that works, but it is not a straight line replacement. Like this team on paper right now, I'm taping this at 1:16 Mountain Time on January 27th. They're worse than they were a week ago. Like this time last week, that Colorado Avalanche team on paper was better than this one that they're rolling out today. It is the freeing up of cap space that makes this the intriguing move for them, because they have been tied to everyone. And it like when I'm saying everyone, someone said Colorado isn't done last night. Honestly, I kind of wanted to do this reaction show last night, and then not last night, on Friday night. And then someone said, hey, Colorado might not be done. So I let it play out, let it roll, let it do its thing. And then eventually it was like, I mean, they're done for today, but they're not done. Now they are still, like, as we speak, they would technically be over the salary cap, but they do have LTIR with Gabe Landeskog. So in terms of like actual salary cap money, they have $3.9 million of it, and they will have that probably by the deadline. So they have some stuff that they can move around, I guess. But it opens up some space for them to make a very big, bold move that is part of this trade tree that then makes it make a bit more sense from a hockey perspective. The other part of it, like just breaking it all down again, Necas is fun. I don't think Rory is nothing. He hasn't developed. I kind of thought that there was a sleeper, like, hey, this guy could be something. And it hasn't worked out that way. You look at some of the secondary numbers, and it's, oh boy. But he is a fine depth piece, I think. And then you look, like, the offense responded. They scored 5 against the Rangers on Sunday afternoon. But overall, this has to be part of something bigger. If this team wants to get back to the Stanley Cup, competing in a very competitive Central Division. The Wild just got Kaprizov and Spurgeon back. They are going to be getting salary cap space again next season, finally. The Winnipeg Jets are desperate and playing really good hockey right now. And the Dallas Stars are just lingering there with so much high-level young talent and a goalie that is stealing the show on a nightly basis. Like, that Central Division is tough. So you can't afford to be taking even a half step back in this division and just hope for the best. It is a really tough grind. And oh, by the way, right now, where they sit in the wild card, they'd play Vegas in the first round of the playoffs. Not fun. Fun for us. Want to see that matchup. Not fun for them. That is a really, really difficult one. So it is an okay move. It is a fine pivot and recovery, but it has to be part of a bigger move. Toxic, I see you mentioning there about the Calgary Flames. We are going to be getting to some Flames talk as well coming up here in just a little bit, once we wrap up this kind of trade discussion here. On the Carolina side, what a trade. Like, giving up Natchez is not nothing. But it was very clear with how things played out last year, like in the whole offseason and everything like that, this was not a guy that was part of their future. And now you are taking a bit of a gamble because Rantanen is not signed and there isn't a big deal that's lined up for him. So this could be just a really, really expensive rental. But it is also one that gets them closer to a championship level team. And when you look at how good the East is this year with, I know, LOL, but the Leafs, they have, like, they're either first place or competing for first basically every day in their division. And they have done that with the big four being together, actually not a ton, with Matthews being injured for as long as he has. And now there's a Tavares injury in there. That they're having some injury issues, but the new style of play with Berube is A, better set up for the postseason, B, has put them in a spot where they're continuing to play really well. And again, competing for first place. So anyway, Leafs are good. It's funny. I feel like I need to justify the Leafs, and then every one of these other teams, you're just going to be like, yeah, no, they're good. But Leafs, good. Panthers, really good. Tampa Bay Lightning seem to be fine. The New Jersey Devils, tough injury news, but really good hockey team. The New York Rangers, seems like they've got that thing back on track, and maybe addition by subtraction was the way to go about it. So we are talking about a Carolina team that is really, really good, that you could conceivably have put in the back half of this conference right now. And so you go out and add a Rantanen, and then just get a Taylor Hall for free, basically. That is brilliant. Unbelievable move. You get off of a guy who you were kind of trying to move and didn't like the deals for him. So you keep him around, get some more value out of him, and now you're turning it into legitimately one of the best players in the world and a guy who has been there at least before and won a Hart Trophy before. And yes, has kind of fallen on some tough luck, but I'm going to assume that I can get more out of him because I got like 10 guys better than he was playing with. So you get a bit of a reclamation project that just the second you see him in that uniform, it's like, oh, well, this is going to work. So that they have really loaded up at the forward spot now. And again, there's pressure on this team to succeed because I think for a few years they have underachieved given the talent that they have. And now they are going for it again. I think they hit a home run with this one. Honestly, they don't even have to take on Rantanen's full contract. So they're not swimming in cap space right now, but it gives you a bit more flexibility to maybe do a little bit more and to try to work on a few more things there. So they come out of this one smelling like roses. The last team involved in this, the Chicago Blackhawks, and like Toxic says in the chat, Blackhawks is an easy breakdown. What are they doing? I said it on Twitter. This deal and what they got back for it, it almost makes it feel like everything, it's going quick. Everything. Well, what about like, you guys should take Taylor Hall? Like, we kind of need to free up some cap space, whatever. You guys should take Taylor Hall. It's like, we don't really want to do that. Okay, whatever. And you just forget to hit the remove asset from the trade button on NHL, and he just still kind of hangs out there. It's like, okay, well, yeah, we'll take on some of the Rantanen money. We'll take a third for that. Yeah, that's maybe a little bit, not as much, but we'll take a third back for that. That's fine. And then you hit trade, and then you show up at the building the next day. It's like, hey, where's Taylor? Like, did he get wind that we were thinking about trading him, but we decided to keep him at the end? And then it's like, wait, we did what? Huh? He was in that? No, I meant to take, I'm sure I took, I'm not, because I remember I did that and then oh no. Oh, we left him in that trade. Like, that's what it feels like. Like Toxic saying in the chat, Taylor Hall should be a third by himself. And yes, like they healthy scratched him at one point in Chicago, and it wasn't going well for him out there, and he was really underproducing. But you have to understand that his value to every other team in the NHL is greater than what it is to yours. Because on your team, there are not the guys around him that can support him. But on Carolina, good Lord. So it's a weird value proposition because on the one hand, like, yeah, you're not getting the best Taylor Hall, but you can get the best out of Taylor Hall. And so I feel like Chicago sold absolutely low on him. I think a third should get you Taylor Hall by himself. I also think taking on $4.5 million of Rantanen's money should get you, honestly, a third itself. And you could, if I was being a dick negotiator that day, I'd probably be asking for a second, because that is not an insignificant amount of money. Now, it's this season, so it doesn't really matter to Chicago, but both things that they gave up should have been worth at least a third-round pick. And then you combine them, and you should get something really solid out of it. So to only get a third is just another case of wild mismanagement for the Blackhawks. And I'm not saying Chicago should be trying to get better right now. I think another trip in the lottery is definitely where they are going. But you need to get actual NHL players to surround Bedard with. Because right now, he is, I'm not saying he is regressing, because that's a bit much. But this is not the rookie or the sophomore season that you need him to have. And you are not seeing the development, and you are not seeing the results that you need from him. And it is getting very concerning if you are the Chicago Blackhawks. And now you're taking away one of the few actual NHL players you have on the team and replacing it with nothing. They shouldn't be going out and now trying to get Sidney Crosby. But I do think that they should overall be sellers, but I think kind of stealth buyers in trying to get a couple of guys in there that Bedard can play with and at least get this ball rolling in a positive direction right now. Like, there's just nothing for them to work with out there except for an exceptional talent. And we have seen in this sport a lot, that's not enough. It's not enough. Other fallout from this. Holy crap, the Canucks are screwed. Apparently, a lot of what this deal was going to be going to Vancouver for JT Miller, and Carolina ends up pulling the plug on that and ends up getting Mikko Rantanen instead, which, yeah, you do that 100 times out of 100. You make that move. It makes complete sense, but now it's basically only the Rangers left at this point. And that, the deal that they were going to get, it was basically Hedl and a couple of other, like, fringy type pieces, right? That's honestly probably not enough for JT Miller. And so you are now trading this thing at 50 cents on the dollar. And the problem is it's all hanging over this organization so badly. Like, they looked so uninterested against Edmonton the other night in a game that you knew Edmonton was going to be fired up for, in a game you kind of need. Like, you're not in a playoff spot right now. And, like, they are literally getting their faces knocked down their throats, their teeth knocked down their throat right now. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. They're giving up 5 goals to the Kings, who have scored the least or second fewest amount of goals of any team currently in a playoff spot right now. They lost to the Buffalo Sabres, who no one does that. They're giving up gigantic point totals to the Edmonton Oilers, who didn't have Connor McDavid. Still a good team, but didn't have Connor McDavid. And you're giving up gigantic point totals to them. Demko can't make a save. Your two best players can't play with each other. Your coach and captain can't get this thing under control. And I'm not blaming Quinn Hughes or really even Rick Tocchet for any of this, but it is just such a disaster of a situation that it is, I think at this point, you almost just have to make the move just to do it. Like, just to get him out of there and let this team figure out what it is without him there. Because Besser's gone at the end of the season. If this thing keeps going his way, why would he come back around for that? Like, no. What an awful team to be around. So this has to get figured out very quickly. And right now, like, if I'm any other contending team in the NHL, I don't want that guy within 100 yards of my rink. Are you kidding me? This is now Horvat and Pettersson that he is having troubles with. Like, Horvat, I think, is a phenomenal player. Phenomenal captain, type of guy you win with. Elias Pettersson, has it gone awesome since the ink dried on that contract? It hasn't. But does that mean that he is a lost cause and should just be whatever? No! He is an incredibly talented hockey player that you can build a championship team around. And he's got a problem with both, and he's going to make you run both of them out of town? I wouldn't want this guy anywhere near my hockey team. And apparently no one else does either, because it's so low now that they're considering trading Elias Pettersson, which I think would be an unmitigated disaster. I think that would be, like, you are getting a haul back for that guy, but it is so difficult to replace that level of high-end talent that you are chasing that forever if you are trying to get it. You hit the lottery on that. The Canucks have never won the lottery before, but you got it on that one. And, like, to think you have a core of him, Besser, Hughes, and Demko, and it is turning into this. It is just wild mismanagement out there, and, like, they need to get this solved quickly. And I honestly think the only thing that is actually solving this is get JT Miller out of town, because it is a just straight tire fire out there right now. This one didn't really affect the Calgary Flames all that much, but they do make a move today. So let's wrap up the sportsy portion of the program today, talking about the Flames. So, the Calgary Flames have made a move, and it surprised a few people, as Rory Kerins has been sent down to the American Hockey League, and I'm a little surprised by that. On the one hand, I get it, because he doesn't need waivers, and if you're not going to play him, send him down. That part's obvious. It's the you're not going to play him part that I have the trouble with. And I made the joke on Saturday when the lines come out for Wednesday, and it's Lomberg up on the third line, Kuzmenko's on the fourth line, and I made the joke about that. About how Huska is looking Kuzmenko right in the eye as he's writing Lomberg on the third line. It's like, this is your fault. This is your fault. Because you should be playing here right now. And now I think Kuzmenko has responded pretty well. But everyone after that is replying, yeah, but what about Kerins out and Rooney in? What about this? What about this? What about this? And I thought, okay, fair. Rooney has been certainly not as good in the last little while and has almost been unusable. Honestly, almost is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. He's basically been unusable for a while now. And so that has not been great. It has been suboptimal, I think, for this team, that is a thing that is happening for them. But the thing is I thought they're playing a back-to-back. It's 3 games in 4 nights. Kerins, he kind of got his head caved in the other night. So it's not, he had a good start. Bit of a rough one. Let's sit him down, get him up in the press box, have him eat some popcorn, watch the game from above, and just see how it's kind of supposed to be. And then you put him back in there against Winnipeg. And then he wasn't back in against Winnipeg. It's like, well, I understand like that line scored and you just put up 5. And so you don't really want to mess with it. But if it feels like you are looking for ways to include Rooney in the lineup instead of the other way around. So I just like, I like Huska. I think he's done a really good job with this team. And I think that there is a lot that he has done with this group that has benefited this team greatly. The problem is like that sometimes this sort of a thing is a problem, I guess. Like this has not been as this one has not been handled in the way that I would have. And I think that just hanging on with Rooney a little bit too long here is a bit of a mistake. So I don't understand it. Even if you are, like, the talk is, okay, well, Zari's coming back. And so it is easier to have Rooney be, again, designated popcorn eater if Zary is coming back. But even still, like, I think Kerins played well enough in his first few games that he at least deserved an opportunity to make up for a tough night and have another chance to go out there and kind of make a play. And so I kind of felt like you could have cycled like him, Bishop, and Rooney through, like, just kind of cycle them through. Whichever one's going, you just roll with that one. And the other two, maybe Kuzmenko starts to fall off a little bit and you put him there or whatever, right? Maybe you try to do it that way. And so I kind of thought you maybe stick with him a little bit longer than you did. So I thought this was a mistake and a very poorly handled situation by Coach Ryan Huska in a stretch where it hasn't really been the case. I think he's done a phenomenal job in maximizing the talent on this team. To Toxic's point, the fourth line does get caved nightly. They are one where I give them the benefit of the doubt because of the energy that they bring, like with Lomberg playing the way that he has. And then anyone who they throw on that line. Like, Rooney is constantly a problem. Lomberg is consistently himself. And then whoever they throw out there, like Sharon Govich has a pretty good time with them when he's out there. Coronado at the beginning of the year, he found that energy and found that work ethic and got going. And I think Kuzmenko has handled things really well as well. So I think there's been a lot of good things happening with that fourth line, even if they haven't really shown up on whatever sort of stat. I went between stat sheet and site and came up with that. But yeah, like Rooney, like you said, Rooney, on the other hand, it feels like he is doing cardio out there. You're right. Like, he is just, the best thing you can say about Rooney on most nights is that he's unnoticeable. The worst thing is that he's really noticeable and it's not great. So that is why, like, maybe if that's going to be the case, then put a kid on there and see what they do. And maybe that is the plan. Maybe it is, you have to take Kerins out. because Zari's coming back, so you're putting now Bishop in that spot, and Rooney is now the popcorn guy. Rooney is your extra forward that you are working with, and that's what it is. But I just think it's a mistake, and I disagree with this one. So maybe bigger things are ahead, and who knows? But even if Zary is coming back, I think the attachment with Rooney is not something that I fully understand from this particular team. Spy Canuck coming in and saying, let the young guys play, cannot be any worse than Rooney. That's the thing, right? Like, and that has been part of my philosophy with this rebuild the whole time, is you let the kids play and see where it falls, right? And so there are guys, I can understand if you don't want to put Zary on the fourth line or whoever, right? You need a Rooney there so that you're not just wasting a guy who has a top six potential in a fourth line spot. With all due respect to Kerins and Bishop, that's kind of where they're slotted in future-wise. Right now, maybe Kerins, because he's been healthy, maybe you do view him a little bit higher than that. But if all you're getting from the fourth line is just getting your brains bashed in, but good vibes, well, you can do that with Bishop. You can do that with Kerins, and then maybe you get a little bit more offensive upside. But to the point, it's not going to be worse than what it is right now, so why not try? Why not do that? You're not hurting anything by having Rooney sit up in the press box for 8 games in a row and seeing what Bishop can do, see what Kerins can do, see what all these guys can do. Honestly, like my semi-hot take, we're not going to get to it today because we're already way long on this thing, but my semi-hot take is that they should, like if Pospisil is going to be playing third line minutes anyway, put him at center. Like, just do that. We'll workshop that one another day. But I don't understand this from the Flames right now. It's a rare miss, in my opinion. But we'll see what other news follows this up. For Calgary hockey fans, I guess for all of you, it's on the internet. I'm back on Sportsnet 960 The Fan tonight at 6 o'clock for Sportsnet Tonight. We're going to be breaking down, honestly, a lot of what we talked about here, but just into a nicer microphone. So, but a lot more Flames talk coming up with me on Sportsnet today, coming up at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. That is going to do it for the sportsy part of this one today. For podcast listeners, this is the end of part 1. Part 2, we are going to be diving into the world of combat sports. Naoya Inoue was everything I said he was going to be on Friday morning. The WWE's Saturday night's main event did not disappoint, and we are getting ready for a gigantic weekend in combat sports. Massive boxing fight, really intriguing UFC card, and the Royal by God Rumble all coming up. So all that breakdown for podcast listeners is coming up in part 2 of Couch Potato Diary.